नंद प्रिय नर्मदा माता जी, दंडवत प्रणाम। शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, गुरु महाराज की जय। प्रीतिदासी from Charlotte. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Preeti Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Das from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arvindaksh Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. This is Radha from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna, Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji. This is Kamaliki Dasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, and all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kaumadiki Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. Indulekha Karuna Devi Dasi from Lincoln.
Hare Krishna, Indulekha Karuna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, and Pranam Srila Prabhupada Salvadar ki Jai Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. This is Radharani Devidasi from Baltimore. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Radharani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, that pranam to you and all the assembled devotees. This is Shivani from Ashwini. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Guru Maharaj ki Jai. This is Shyama Gauri Devidasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gauri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nanda Priya Narmada Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Tennessee. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas. This is Anuradha Devidasi from Dallas, Texas.
Hare Krishna, Anuradha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Mataji, shall we start recording, Mataji? Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Keshavanand Prabhu on the call to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto 11th chapter 9th sloka. Before handing over the call to Prabhuji, I would like to ask Sureshwar Sham Prabhuji to give some brief introduction about Prabhuji. Prabhuji, please take over.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you. Thank you all for joining today. So, Dr. Keshavanand Prabhu is a professional doctor and a monk. Since the last 20 years, he has been conducted extensive research and authored books in the field of science and spirituality. He feels the rift between science and spirituality must disappear to bring peace in the world. If spirituality is a superstition and a myth, science is materialistic and atheistic. A new approach to life is needed today that can bring best of both worlds. Science must embrace spirituality and be humble to admit its defects, flaws, and ignorance. And spirituality must base itself on sound scientific and rational ideas. Dr. Keshavanand Prabhu found this new approach in the Sanskrit sutras of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. For decoding the Sanskrit sutras of the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, he studied Sanskrit and Western and Indian philosophy. Besides Sanskrit, he also learned Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, and Kannada to know about other traditions. His persistent endeavor in the field of science and spirituality has enabled him to come up with seminars on diverse topics like science and Vedas, mind and machines, science fails to explain life, consciousness and beyond, etc., that he presented in various colleges in India, Europe, and America. Under the guidance of his spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj, he has also started a Gurukula, a tradition system of Vedic education in Punjab, India, where children learn the ancient Vedic culture and values. Besides, he has started a farm community. The community has a traditional way of living with mud huts and thatch roofs, with cows and, of course, farming. The communities will set a model for the world to show how to live a life based on principles of simple living and high thinking. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I don't see Keshavanand Prabhuji on the call now.
Yeah, we can read the verse, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
You can show.
Who is going to read, Mataji?
I'll read, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Please take over, Mataji.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 11, Text 9. Dashasan.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. You need to share on the screen.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Mataji. Ekadasasan manaso hi vrittaya akutaya panchadhiyo bhimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti haikadasha vira bhumi. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. There are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. O hero, the objects of the senses, such as sound and touch, the organic activities such as evacuation, and the different types of bodies, society, friendship, and personality are considered by learned scholars the fields of activity for the functions of the mind. Purport: the mind is the controller of the 5 knowledge acquiring senses and the 5 working senses. Each sense has its particular field of activity. In all cases, the mind is the controller or owner. By the false ego, one thinks oneself, the body, and thinks in terms of my body, my house, my family, my society, my nation, and so on. These false identifications are due to the expansions of the false ego.
Thus, one thinks that he is this or that. Thus, the living entity becomes entangled in material existence. Hare Krishna. I need to see if Prabhuji is. I don't see Prabhuji, Mataji. Shall we pause?
Yes, Mataji. Let me check with Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna, Hare Samati Patram, Samiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna, Hare Samati Radhanath Maharaj Iti Namine. Yasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Sivasati Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram,
Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram
Hare
Ram,
Krishna, Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram
Hare
Ram,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Hare Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Krishna Krishna Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Ram Ram.
वो आ गए सब लोग.
We are waiting, Prabhuji.
Oh yeah, sorry, I just
That's
was somewhere. Can you just have you read the verse?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for giving your very valuable time and association with us this morning. Please take over the call, Prabhuji.
You know what? Can anybody read the verse again? I mean to say, I just need to have a look here again.
Yeah, Mataji.
No.
Indulekha Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Ekadashasan manaso hi vrittaya akutaya panchadhyo bhimanaha matrani karmani puram chatasam vadanti ekadashavira bhumi. We can't see you.
No. Yes, I mean to say, can you just read the translation and the purport for me?
Sure, Prabhuji. Translation: there are 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses. There is also the false ego. In this way, there are 11 items for the mind's functions. O hero, the object of the senses such as sound and touch, the organic activities such as evacuation and the different types of bodies, society, friendship, and personality are considered by learned scholars the fields of activity for the functions of the mind. Purport: the mind is the controller of the 5 knowledge acquiring senses and the 5 working senses. Each sense has its particular field of activity. In all cases, the mind is the controller or owner. By the false ego, one thinks oneself the body and thinks in terms of my body, my house, my family, my society, my nation, and so on. These false identifications are due to the expansions of the false ego. Thus, one thinks that he is this or that. Thus, the living entity becomes entangled in material existence. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. Can everybody can hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I'll just speak now. इसको उल्टा नहीं कर सकते. Yeah, just give me a minute. इसको आप स्क्रीन को उल्टा नहीं कर सकते कि मतलब मैं देखना नहीं चाहता. मैं I just want to speak. हाँ मतलब वहाँ से दिखाई दे. So please just give me a second. I just need to do something. अब आ रहे? Does anybody know how to change the camera in the Zoom? I want to take a hind camera, not the front camera. Hare Krishna. पता नहीं. Okay. Yeah. So Bluetooth हटा दो. Just remove Bluetooth. Just remove it. Just cancel it. Okay. So can you all see me and hear me? Both of it.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. Full? Okay, fine. I'll just speak now. Yeah. Okay, so we are discussing 5.11.9, and this verse, 5th canto, 11th chapter, 9th verse, and again we come to Jad Bharat and the Hugan, like that. Now, Jad Bharat is making a point here about body. So he's making a point that mind. He's saying ekadasham manaso hi bhutta. The mind is surrounded by 11 senses. Mind includes 11. So 5 working senses and 5 senses of acquiring knowledge. I think so mind is, so along with 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and 11th is mind. This is what our body. This is what our body is made of. So Jad Bharat, he's analyzing who are we and how we are different from our body. Now this is very important. This is called Sankhya Yoga. It seems Jad Bharat, he is quite adept in Sankhya philosophy. Maybe from his previous works like Bharat Maharaj, etc. But he has this knowledge, and he clearly understands his soul different from his body, different from mind, different from intelligence, false ego, and spirit soul. Now this is what we have to understand. I am soul and not this body. Srila Prabhupada always he emphasized on this point in his books, that I am not this body. But the question is how we are not this body. That we have to understand. Just like Prabhupada used to say, God is great. But then the question comes, how God is great. So Rahugan, so Jada Bharat, he is telling how we are different from this body. And this is the function of Sankhya philosophy. All philosophies, I mean to say all theistic philosophies, they accept that we are soul, we are not this body. Yeah, so even if they don't accept the conception of God, this everybody is going to accept that we are soul, we are not this body. But how we are different from this body, that is explained by Sankhya. So Sankhya philosophy says, so Jada Bharat is making a point. Eka dasham manasohi vrittaya. That we have 11 senses, and then there is the 11th one is, of course, here they say the so here Jada Bharat is taking a different take altogether. He's saying we have 11 senses, which includes false ego. So 5 working senses and 5 knowledge acquiring senses, plus false ego. This is 11. And these 11 are all, the center point is mind. The central point is mind. So all these 11 senses, including which are also including false ego, the information, they collect all this information. 5 functioning senses, they collect information. 5 knowledge acquiring senses, they collect information. False ego develops some conceptions in itself, and all this information is passed to mind. So mind can be understood as a central processing unit, CPU. You can think like that. So then Jada Bharat continues. Akutya panchadhiya abhimana matrani karmani puram chatasam. So puram, so matrani karmani. So what they do is, so knowledge acquiring senses, they have matrani. So matrani means sense perceptions and sense objects. Srila Prabhupada translates as sense objects, but it also includes sense perceptions. And then karmani. Karmani, so knowledge acquiring senses, for knowledge acquiring senses, the word used is matrani, which is technically called as tanmatra. Knowledge acquiring senses, they perceive sense objects, and that is called matrani. And working senses, they do some actions. So for that, the word uses karmani. So matrani karmani puram chatasam. And with these senses and mind and false ego, we are staying in puram. Puram means the city. We're staying in this body. We are soul. We're surrounded by this 11 senses and mind, and we are staying in this body, which is called puram. In this body, in this society, in this country, in a house, we are working here in this city. So city, it depends how do we translate puram as. So he says, Vadanti hi ekadasha veera bhumi. So he says, so Jada Bharat is making a point that ultimately we are not all of this. We are not this city, we are not this mind, we are not these 11 items. We are separate from all of them. We are Satchitananda, Chinmay, spirit souls. That's what Jada Bharat is trying to make us understand. That's what Prabhupada said. Sarvapadi Nirmuktam Tatparatvena Nirmalam Rishikesha Sernam Bhakti Ruchate. The famous verse. This verse is quoted by Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion, but he quotes it from, I think he quotes it from Narad Tantra. Narad Tantra. So this is a famous verse which comes in initial part of Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada says, Sarvapadi, if you want to do bhakti, you have to be free from all bodies. This Prabhupada put it simply, you're not Indian, you're not American. And then Prabhupada says, you're not this body, you're not this mind, you're not this senses, you're not this false ego, you are spirit souls. Now this seems, this is called Sankhya philosophy, but this appears in hearing it appears very easy, but in practice it's very difficult to actually understand that we are not all of this. This is very difficult because this body and this mind pulls us down. This society, our homes, they pull our consciousness down back again into gross, into this gross field of consciousness. So like, for example, if you have this body, now we might understand we're not this body, but suppose if you get a disease, then you will become fearful. Now many devotees, they mail me and they say, Prabhuji, I have this disease, I have become so fearful. The question is, why do you become fearful if you're not this body? If something happens to your shirt, you don't become fearful. You're concerned about the shirt, but that my shirt is torn, but there's no fear. But the fact is, if something happens to your body, which is almost like shirt, which Krishna says, Basham Sijirnani Athavihaya, then we become fearful. So there's a difference between something happening to your shirt and something happening to your body. Although both of them, we understand we are neither shirt nor a body. So then why there's a difference of feelings? Because we are not self-realized. We are not realized. We have information we are on this body by these kind of verses, but we have not got realization we are on this body. That's why we get fear. And that is why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita Mahasucha, Krishna says, do not fear. Fear is a symptom of attachment. That's why Krishna says, with raga bhaya krodha. After rag comes bhaya. So fear is a symptom of attachment. That's very important to understand. Where there is attachment, there is fear. There's fear of losing the objects to whom you are attached to. There is fear of happening something to the objects you are attached to. So there is a fear. But if you're not attached to any objects, then there will be no fear. That's all. Simple. If you have a car and so people often buy brand new cars, and then they are fearful. Some scratch might happen, something might happen to my car, because they're attached to the car. But if they're not attached, then they will have no fear. That's the whole point. So by fear, we can understand how much we have realized we are not this body, we are not this mind. Now sometimes the mind starts thinking something, and then we are disturbed. So fear with raga, bhaya, krodha, another symptom of attachment to this body and mind is frustration and anger. So these two, fear and frustration and anger, frustration or anger you can take, krodha. Fear and anger, they are signs and symptoms of being attached to anything, attached to the body, attached to family, attached to nation, attached to our own mind, our own concepts. If you're not attached to anything, if you're devoid of attachment, sarvapadi vinoktam, that the test is that you will have no fear and no anger. That's simple. So if there is no fear, no anger, that means you are undisturbed. And that's what Krishna raises a theme in Bhagavad Gita. But my devotee is undisturbed amidst cold and heat, and the word said, sukh, dukh. So Shitoshna, summer, winter, he's equanimous, he's not disturbed. So that's very important to understand. Jad Bharat is known as Jad Bharat. Why? Because Jada means he's inert. He's not spiritually inert, but he's inert to external conditions. He's inert to anything happening to his body, to society, to nation, to his mind. He doesn't care about it.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
He actually cares about these things, but at the same time, he's not disturbed. These are two different things. He's
Hare
not a careless fellow.
Ji, can you hear me?
But he understands that that I should not be disturbed, because this is something external to me. External things. These are something external. So that's a big test. So if you want to test, and Srila Prabhupada says the degree of advancement in devotion can be checked by how much you are attached, by how much you are not attached to this body, mind, and falsehood. That's the test of advancement in devotional life.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
The more you are detached from the body, from mind, from senses, the more you are advanced. Simple. And that's what Bhagavatam says. What's that verse? Janyati ashu vairagyam jnanam chatatahitukam. कुछ हुआ. So Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janyati ashu vairagyam jnanam chatatahitukam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
The test of devotion is vairagya, renunciation. Renunciation. That's
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, your volume is very low. Everybody is saying that.
Yeah, what's happening? The volume is good for me.
Oh, who is saying is good for me?
क्या हो रहा है ये आवाज?
Everyone is saying low.
अच्छा, voice is very low.
Yes.
इसको change करो, दूसरा just a minute. Hare Krishna, now voice is okay?
Okay. Yes.
And now voice is okay. Oh no. Actually something was off here.
Okay.
Something was.
Yeah.
It's okay, so fine. So I'll just speak. Okay, so so should I repeat or what happened? You missed everything.
Prabhuji, continue.
Recording in progress. Okay, so the whole point was that that ultimately Srila Prabhupada said that that the degree of advancement in devotional life is checked by the amount of renunciation you have. Now this is a very important point, because generally we think that that advancement can be checked by ecstasy in devotion, by attachment to Krishna, but that is okay. But Bhagavatam doesn't say like that. Bhagavatam doesn't say that advancement in devotion can be checked by your attachment to Krishna or the ecstasy you feel, because it's words of Bhagavatam, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chatat Ahitukam. I think this verse is what is this verse? Bhagavatam, which verse is this? Yeah, I think first canto, second chapter, 8th verse. I think you can check it. So this verse is very clear. Vasudeva Bhagavati. So who is God? Vasudeva. Now Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. So anybody who is, Prayojan means goal. Anybody whose goal is bhakti, devotion towards Vasudeva. Vasudeva means Krishna, who is God, Bhagavati. Then what's the symptom of it? So if he's advancing in bhakti, then what's the symptom? Bhagavatam clearly says, Janyati ashu vairagyam jnanam chatat ahitukam. Jnana and vairagya. Bhagavatam clearly says. Bhagavatam doesn't say ecstasy. Okay, so this verse is 127. First canto, second chapter, 7th verse. You can correct it. It's not 8th verse, 7th verse. So Bhagavatam is very clear. Bhagavatam says, well, the symptom of advancement of devotion is not ecstasy. There's no word bhava here. They don't say the symptom of attachment is attachment to Krishna. There is no rati or rag here. Sukadeva Goswami uses two words, vairagya and jnana. So, and that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's a famous verse by Srinivasacharya. he composed a verse. Vairagya Bhakti. So there's a verse. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Shikshartham Ekam Purusha Purana. This is a famous verse where it is said, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he brought devotion which is ornamented by Vairagya and Vidya. Now that's very important insight into it. And this verse is composed by Srinivas Acharya, who is like one of the one of the main acharyas of Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya after Rupa Goswami. I think this actually this verse is composed by whom? No, I think this verse is composed by actually this verse is not composed by Srinivas. This verse is composed by whom? Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. No. Chartham Ekam Purusha Purana. See, I'm just missing this. The name. Srinivas Acharya, or so there was one devotee who actually wrote a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, small, and Srinath Chakravarti. Yeah, this verse is written by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur, not Srinivas Acharya. Srinath Chakravarti is one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He writes this, he composed this verse. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. And then, of course, this was quoted by Sarvam Bhattacharya also. So, anyway, you can check this, who composed this verse. This verse was composed by Sarvam Bhattacharya. This verse is composed by Sarvam Bhattacharya. I got confused. Yeah. Sorry for that. Not Srinath Chakravarti Thakur, not Srinath Acharya, Sarvam Bhattacharya. This verse is composed by Sarvam Bhattacharya. Yeah. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. So, even it's opinion of Sarvam Bhattacharya. That advancement in devotion can be checked by Vairagya and Vidya. Same Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's just very important. Jad Bharat is raising the same point here in this verse. Now Bhagavatam says if you are advancing in devotion, then you should develop renunciation and you should develop knowledge. These two things. So renunciation and knowledge. Now the question comes, renunciation in what? And what kind of knowledge? So Jad Bharat is explaining in this verse, you have to have renunciation from what? So the word used in this verse is Puram. You have to have renunciation in those things which you are not, naturally. If I'm not this, if I'm not that, then I should not be attached to it because they don't belong to me. Neither they belong to me and neither I am these things. So why should we be attached to all these things? So Jadavara says, okay, fine, let's make a list. What things you should not be attached to. So he says Puram. Puram means city. City means your nation. Prabhupada translates in word to word. Your nation, your family, your house, your relatives, even your own body. You should not be attached to all these things. So that's very clear. Okay, that becomes clear. But then Jadavara goes deeper. Then he says you should not be even attached to these senses, the 5 working senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, which actually includes this body. And then you should not be even attached to false ego. False ego means you should not be even attached to your own ideas. Practically, attachment to false ego means you should not be attached to your own ideas, because the function of false ego is to generate ideas. Well, the function of false ego is to generate ideas which are very concrete. That's what false ego does. False ego makes your ideas stable and concrete. That's the function of false ego. Mind also generates ideas, but false ego generates ideas which you believe in, which you are firmly convinced that this is correct, even though if that's not correct. So you should not be attached to your firm ideas. You should not be attached to, because even our firm ideas, which might be based on some evidence, which might be based on some logic, that can be wrong. So if you get more knowledge, more logic, then it can become wrong, just like science. Science, there are so many facts which are well established, but after some time they become wrong. Why? Because your knowledge increases, and when you see the same phenomena with more knowledge, then your ideas change. That's the history of science. Everybody knows, which is technically called as paradigm shift. Thomas Kuhn used the word paradigm shift, paradigm change. So, if science can change, the theory of science, which is actually based on rationality and evidence, if that can change, then your own ideas, which are not even scientific, which are just your thought in your mind, and actually form some logical conclusions that can be wrong, even if you feel it's 100% correct. Now, why do we feel that my idea is 100% correct? Because of false ego. Because of false ego, we firmly hold on to our ideas. So Jadabharat is saying, don't do that. And then Jadabharat is saying, don't be attached to your own mind. So practically that means we should not be attached to our plans, what we make for future, na shochati, na kamshati, or to our past memories. Mind's function is to always think of future or brooding on past. So he said, don't be attached to all these things. Become detached from all these things, and then understand your soul. So this is called renunciation. This is complete renunciation. Not being attached to all these things. Then we are truly renounced. Otherwise, you're not truly renounced. Otherwise, we are still attached. So most of us, we can understand gross things. Most of us, we are not attached to our family, to our relatives. I hope so. Or maybe our society, the society which we are living in. But we don't really think about detachment from a body, detachment from mind, that's more or less, detachment from false ego, that's even rare to understand. And really to understand weird soul, that's very difficult. So that is called renunciation. Renunciation, Prabhupada also defines, renunciation means to act on platform of soul. That's also very important to understand. It's not just understanding, okay, so I'm not attached to my ideas, I'm not attached to my plans, I'm not attached to this body, but you have to act like that. So Srila Prabhupada always uses this word, act on the platform of soul. That is called renunciation. Renunciation doesn't mean inaction. You just sit in a cave, close your eyes. You close your eyes and you think, okay, I'm not this body, I'm not senses, I'm not false ego, and you just meditate. That's not renunciation. Renunciation is action. Action on platform of soul. If I am not all this, then who we are? We are soul. And what's the function of soul? Function of soul is to serve Krishna without being attached to all these items. So that is called as renunciation. That is complete definition of renunciation. Or to work for Krishna and not work for body, senses, and false ego. Not try to fulfill the desires of a body, of a society, of a nation, of a false ego, not to fulfill our own plans, but to always act on platform of soul, or in other words, to always act for God, because soul's action is to serve Krishna, fulfill the plans of Krishna. So that is complete renunciation. That is called as renunciation. That's how we test renunciation. For whom you are acting for? Ultimately, are you acting for your society, for nation, for a family? What's your intention? So why do you want to do this or that or this or that? For whom? For yourself, for your body, for your health, for your mind, for the peace of your mind, or for the peace of society, or peace of your family? For what you are doing? Or you want to do some action for giving satisfaction to Krishna? So you see the point. Sankhya philosophy leads to devotion, ultimately. And that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya Yoga Pritak Bala Prabhajanti Na Pandita. Those people who are childish, they say Sankhya and devotion are non-different. But those who are expert, for them, both paths leads to the same goal. Sankhya ultimately leads to devotion automatically, just like I explained. Sankhya says become detached. Devotion says become attached to Krishna. But ultimately, that detachment will lead to attachment to Krishna. Ultimately, but if you want to understand how to advance in devotion, we should not check from attachment. We should check always from detachment. That's what Bhagavatam says. Because you can also be sentimentally attached. Just like Bhaktisanta used to say, he is attached to a blue boy and not God. That can happen. So many ladies in India, they are attached to Krishna, Bal Gopal, but they're not attached from the body, from the senses, or whatever it is. So it can be problematic situation, and that's what Bhakti Saraswati Thakur always fought for. He fought his whole life against Sahijism, and this is the philosophy of Sahijya. Okay, if you're attached to Krishna, if you're getting tears in your eyes, if you're getting ecstasy, feeling nice in kirtans, that means you're advancing. It might be, it might not be. It might not be. You can 24 hours keep on chanting. You can 24 hours keep on shedding tears for Krishna. But it might be that you're not advancing an inch in devotion. That's not the opinion of Bhagavatam. That's the opinion of all saints, Christian mystic saints, even Quran. You see all Islamic saints. All of them, all the theistic organizations, they are very clear on that. And if you're advancing in devotion, then there's just one question: how much you're attached to your surroundings, to your body, to your mind, to your policy. And I just explained how do we so I just explained what do we mean by detachment to a society, to a body, to a mind, to policy. So that's the first symptom. The next symptom of advancement in devotion is Jnanam Chatata. Jnana, knowledge. So this is knowledge. This is knowledge. What Jad Bharat is given. When you do devotion, automatically you will understand. You will start seeing everything separately. Everything will become separate. When you advance in devotion, you close your eyes, you will be able to see my body is different, my mind is different, my false ego is different, my body is saying something, my mind is saying something, my false ego is saying something, my soul is saying something. All these voices you will be able to hear clearly, separately. That is called knowledge. Knowledge is not just memorizing shlokas and having some 90% marks or something. That's not knowledge. That is called information. Knowledge is you will be able to see for yourself. So when you close your eyes, some voice will come, some idea will come in your mind. You will be immediately be able to, you will understand this idea is coming from a mind or my false ego, or this idea is coming from society, my friends, from some peer pressure, or this idea is coming from my soul, or maybe Krishna. So that knowledge means discrimination. Discrimination, which Jad Bharat understands here. You'll be able to discriminate on what platform you're working. And that needs little realization. That needs little realization. You can understand clearly, okay, this idea is coming from a mind, I don't have to entertain this. Or this idea is actually, what do you say, inserted by society or by people into my mind, I don't have to act on this. Or this idea is coming from Kali, Satan. You will understand that slowly and gradually. That is called knowledge. Because if God can insert thoughts in your mind, even Kali can do that. And he will not even understand what's happening. So it's not necessary that ideas which are coming in your head, that are your ideas. It's not like that. Okay, I think like that. So I think means I think. No. Your thought might be coming from your soul, from your mind, from your false ego, from society, from Satan, from God. Now, how do we understand from where that thought is coming? by knowledge you will understand. So this is called renunciation and knowledge. By this we can understand whether we are advancing in devotion or not. So Jad Bharat is exactly speaking the same. Jad Bharat is explaining in details what do we mean by renunciation, what do we mean by knowledge. If you want to understand renunciation and knowledge, you have to understand this Sankhya philosophy which Jad Bharat is explaining. Otherwise, we'll not understand anything. We might be saying, okay, advancement in devotion is judged by renunciation and knowledge. You might have your own definition of renunciation and knowledge. You might think, yeah, I have knowledge because I have done VIG course. I got 95% marks. It's good to do VIG course, but I'm not saying it's bad. But the whole point is, if you think I have done VIG course and I have 95% marks, or maybe some other course and I've got 95% marks, it's not equivalent to having knowledge. Or you might have your own definition. Yeah, I'm renounced because I don't care for my family, I don't care for society, I don't care for my friends, I don't care for my body. So I'm renounced. That's absurd. That's rubbish. That's not called renunciation. So how do you understand what's renunciation and true knowledge? By understanding this, what Jad Bharat is saying. What are senses? What is mind? What is false ego? What is society? What is our relatives? What is my body? Who am I? And then, so then you have separate compartments, and then you can see, okay, fine. I should not be attached to all these compartments. I should be attached to soul. And I should work on the platform of soul. And what's knowledge? I should be able to understand from where the ideas are coming. And then reject those ideas which are coming from body, mind, false ego, senses, society, and accept those ideas which are coming from the soul. That's called renunciation and knowledge. This is how Jad Bharat is explaining in this verse. And so you see the point. Devotees often think, what's the use of this knowledge? And Jad Bharat is saying 11 senses, mind, false ego. Who cares for that? Let's chant and be happy. Generally, devotees think like that. Let's do some kirtan and that's fine. But that's not fine. You can do devotion, but you will not understand whether you're advancing or not. And that's very important to understand. I mean, to say you're shooting arrows in darkness. And if you don't understand you're advancing or not, then eventually you fall down. Because if you don't know what's happening, where you're going, then you're lost. And a lost person, if you're lost in a jungle, eventually you'll be killed by some wild animal. You should exactly know the way, especially in a forest. So this is the forest of material world, and you should know the way out. Okay, this is the way, and this is the goal. And that's why there is so much discussion of philosophy. And that's why Srimad Bhagavatam actually spends a lot of time on these kind of discussions. Body, 11 senses, mind. You see whole chapters after chapters of Kapil Muni, Sankhya philosophy. So what's that canto? Third canto. The third canto, entire third canto is full of these discussions. What is body? What is senses? What is mind? What are sense objects? What is sense perception? What are three modes of material nature? How mind is produced of mode of goodness? How senses are produced of mode of passion? How sense objects are produced of mode of ignorance? How they interact and the influence of time? Everything is explained. So is third canto of Bhagavatam not important? Or if it's not important, then why did Prabhupada translate? Prabhupada could have just translated 10th canto, Krishna book, that's all. Finish it off. Or even 11th canto, the same subjects are coming back again. In fact, entire Bhagavatam is full of this knowledge, Sankhya philosophy, theistic Sankhya, which ultimately helps us to enter devotion. Then you come to 10th canto. Then 10th canto, the subject is Krishna. Then you connect to Krishna. Because if you don't understand whether Krishna is speaking or my mind is speaking or society is speaking or my senses are speaking or my false ego is speaking, then how do you serve Krishna? That's the most important point. We are after all servants of Krishna. We are not sense enjoyers of Krishna. So then the whole point is, then how do you serve him? So to serve him, we need to understand all these things. And that is called as Uttamatikari. That's why Bhagavatam says, Janyati Asho Vairagyam Jnanam Chaturthi. If you do devotion, Vairagya and knowledge will appear in your life. But renunciation knowledge will only appear if you want them to appear. If you understand what is renunciation knowledge, then they will appear in your life. They will enter your life. If you don't understand anything and if you just keep on going like that, then nothing will happen. And even if something happens, you will not notice it and it will just come and go. You will not be able to keep it with yourself. That's the whole point. Because the definitions are wrong. Our definition of knowledge is different. Our definition of renunciation is different. If your definitions are different, then you perceive the entire thing differently. And then you will not be able to advance properly. So this is a verse. This verse is not redundant. That's my whole point. I have just explained in this lecture how this verse is connected to devotion. It's not a redundant knowledge that Jad Bharat is trying to give to Rahugan. We don't have to follow the footsteps of Jad Bharat. We have to follow the footsteps of gopis. So Jad Bharat, who is Jad Bharat? Who cares for him? No, I mean, we just think like that. He's a yogi, he's a renunciate. We are devotees of Raj and gopis. This is how Sahijyas think. This is how they talk. But pure devotees, they don't look like this. Jad Bharat is a pure devotee and he knows what he's doing. And he's speaking what is relevant to all of us. To elevate to the platform of Gopi Bhav. Our target is gopis, of course. Serve Krishna with the gopis. But we'll not be able to do it if we can't even recognize that. If we can't even become detached from a body, mind, false ego, and if we don't have true knowledge, true discrimination, then we are bound to get entangled in this material world and fall. So we must keep in mind these explanations, Jad Bharat. These are very practical explanations. It's not just theory. 11 senses, mind, false ego, okay, this is some theory. No. It's practical. I have explained you what's the practical use of all these things. You have to know all these things separately so that you'll be able to discriminate whom to listen. Soul or mind or false ego, what to do. And whom to become attached and whom not to become attached. And whom not to become attached. These things should be clear. Anyway, Hare Krishna. So I'll just stop here. Any questions or anything? I think let's be proceed.
Dandavad Pranam. Thank you so much for such a beautiful class, Prabhuji. It really very nice to know that how we can do devotional service and advance in and get renunciation and knowledge will appear within. It's very nice, Prabhuji, and there are so many doubts for me with this, and I don't know how about the knowledge and knowledge is okay, but renunciation is another thing which we are more attached to kids and all. I don't know how to get rid of all this attachment.
Yeah, Kunti Maharani is also saying, please, Krishna, relieve me of the attachment to my sons, Pandavas. But anyway, you see the point, that's the whole point. Not being attached to nation, family, relatives, especially kids, and husband for females. And for males, it's house and money, family. So not being attached to all these things, we have to understand what is the meaning of detachment. So Srila Prabhupada says it is very natural to have affection for children. Prabhupada says that. It will never happen that you will never have, so it will never happen in your life that you will be devoid of affection for sons and husband. It's impossible. It will never happen. And it will never happen that husband have no affection for children. It will never happen like that. Even Srila Prabhupada, he had affection for his wife. When he was in Vrindavan, like ISKCON was like on the top. And Prabhupada was thinking of his wife and he was saying she was a good female. So affection can be there. That's okay. But attachment, being detached is a very different thing. That's why I told, being detached means to act on the platform of soul. For whom you are working for, that's very important. You might have affection for your children, for husband, but you're not working for them. You're working for Krishna. And if you're working for Krishna, so if you're making food for Krishna in your home, if you're cleaning your house, thinking it's a temple and I'm cleaning for Krishna, if you're taking care of your children, that these living entities, they belong to Krishna. And so I have to take care because anyway, by karma, they are with me. So if your intention is to work for Krishna and you're not working for them, I mean to say you can feed them, you can put them in school, that you can do. So you might think, okay, I'm working for them. No, you can feed them prasadam. That's what we are doing as a devotee. So we are working for Krishna. We are giving that soul prasadam so that they get sukrutis or they advance in devotion. We are actually taking care of them so that they become good devotees when they grow up. They might or might not, but you're doing your duty. So ultimately, it is not immediately you're doing for Krishna, but maybe in a long chain. Ultimately, it's for Krishna. That's very important. That's how we define your have detachment. So affection will always be there. It's not, you can't get rid of affection. So that's a subtle difference between detachment and having no affection. Affection can be there, but you can be completely detached. You're not working for them. You're working for Krishna. So ultimately, for a devotee, their children, their husband are like living entities who are by karmas. It's there with them. They're staying with them. They're staying with you, and naturally, you will have some affection. But you're working for Krishna. You have more affection for Krishna, much more affection for Krishna than you have for your kids and your husband. So you work for him and not for them. Even if you work for them, indirectly it goes to Krishna. So that matters. And then we can judge the level of detachment. That's how we have to understand.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, it doesn't make any practical sense.
This is related to renunciation, but about knowledge, Prabhuji, I don't know. We'll be getting so many thoughts. How I'm just a neophyte devotee, so I don't know how to take the right choice. Whether I don't know if it's from false ego.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's called knowledge. How to understand this thought is coming from where, and that is why I told knowledge means discrimination power. It's called vivek. All acharyas are translating knowledge as vivek or discrimination. Even Srila Prabhupada. So how to understand from where that idea thought is coming? From mind, from false ego, from body, from soul. Now this thing, when you advance, you will automatically understand from within. But then because it's a science, we can understand from where this thought is coming. But I think then we need an entire lecture for this. What is discrimination? And how do we understand from where the thought is coming? But one practical advice I can give you. If the thought is coming from soul proper, then at least one thing will be there. If the thought is coming from soul proper, then the thought will never entangle you in this material world. If the thought is coming from anything else except soul, then you will become entangled in this material world. So you have to see this thought leads me to where? I'm thinking this thought. What's the ultimate destination if I pursue this thought? And if at the end you're becoming more entangled in this material world, more disturbed by entertaining the thought, then this means that thought is not coming from soul. If that thought is coming from soul, then what will happen is, if you pursue that thought, you'll become less disturbed. And you will be aloof from material entanglements. You will get away from material entanglements and not be pulled in material entanglements, not be pulled in complications of this material world. then this is one of the simple way to understand from where thought is coming. But then how to understand that thought is coming from mind or false ego, how to distinguish our body, that needs a different kind of explanation or lecture. But this we can project the thought and see what's the ultimate consequence. And then we can understand from where it is coming.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Anuradha Mataji, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class and wonderful explanation. Prabhu, you said that, attachment to Krishna is one thing and then detachment. And I mean, like Srila Rupa Goswami says that, somehow or the other, get your mind attached to Krishna. And once we get attached to Krishna, then we have some interest in Krishna, then we start reading this book, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. But until we have some kind of attraction for Krishna, we will not read. And if we do not read, that detachment also does not come. So I was feeling that you were saying detachment comes first and then attachment to Krishna. But if I look into my life, I see attachment to Krishna came, and I'm not saying I'm detached by any means.
Attachment to Krishna doesn't come first. First comes faith in Krishna. Okay. Not attachment. I mean to say, you were and we were all non-devotees. Mm-hmm. How we came to Krishna consciousness? Because Prabhupada became into touch with devotees. They said, read Bhagavad Gita, chant. So we had faith in those Vaishnavas. And because of that faith, we started reading about Krishna. And then we become attached to Krishna slowly. And simultaneously, because of that attachment, we become detached to this material world. But the point I was telling is how to understand whether we are advancing in devotion. Don't judge by attachment, judge by detachment, because attachment can also be sentimental. Okay. We can be attached to some stories and some, like that. So that's the whole point. But we don't start with attachment, and neither detachment. We start with faith, which develops into attachment, and then we get detachment. But then how to judge where we are? We can't judge by faith, because faith is very abstract. We can all think we are 100%, we have 100% faith in Krishna. But when time comes, we are completely disturbed. We can all think we are attached to Krishna because we are going to Vrindavan, we are doing aartis, we feel so nice. But it might be some sentiment, like a child, like my grandmother. She used to weep when she used to sing bhajans. But detachment is a thing which will never come until unless you are truly attached to Krishna. That is why Bhagavatam says, see detachment. Don't judge by attachment. That's the whole point.
Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful. I had one more thing to the point that Mataji was mentioning. If somebody's, someone's children or husband is a good devotee, and then it said that, serving the devotees of the Lord is even more superior. How do we look into that perspective?
If husband and they are devotees, so serving them is more superior. Yeah, of course. What Krishna says to Arjuna and Agni Puran, Yome Bhakta Jana Partha. If anybody says that he's my devotee, he's not my devotee. If anybody says he's my devotee's devotee, then he's my devotee. But the whole point is, ultimately serving devotees is for what? Is for actually pleasing Krishna. Mm-hmm. So ultimately serving devotees, we are serving Krishna through devotees. That's what Krishna is saying. We are not serving only devotee. Because if you only serve devotee, and if you say I serve devotee, I don't serve Krishna, then that's absurd, because then what kind of devotion you have? So we are serving Krishna through devotees. So we can serve husband, we can serve our children, but then help them to become Krishna conscious. And then that is a service for Krishna. Otherwise, what is that kind of service for? Of course, as a wife, you also have dharma to serve your husband and kids. But for us, service, the concept of service is much superior to religion. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole understanding.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu. In a situation, I heard Prabhupada's one of the memories where Prabhupada says, suppose you're showing a lamp to Krishna and your kid needs you, you need to run to the kid, dropping that lamp. I mean, keeping that lamp aside. So in situation, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very general saying. Every time we can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, not in a genuine case. I mean, suppose a devotee is in trouble and you also have a service at the temple, but the devotee needs for, I'm not saying for mundane, I'm speaking for a devotee who might be, seems to be a genuine devotee, Prabhu. But karmi people, we understand. But when it comes to devotee and Krishna, serving the devotee over Krishna.
If it comes to devotee and Krishna, then you choose devotee.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
No, not Krishna. Not Krishna. Yeah. Then devotee, then, because Krishna will be more pleased. That's what.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Parima Mataji, please go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranams. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, I had this question. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I had this question that you were just mentioning about the Sankhya philosophy. I mean, long time back, I had heard that Sankhya philosophy has been even adopted by Buddhism. Buddha also, but they believe that after detachment, you have to drop the mind. I don't know if this is true. And how do you look at it? Even Jainism is like that. They don't believe in devotion. But then how do you look at it at these two philosophies?
Yeah, they have a component of Sankhya, and that's why we have two types of Sankhya, atheistic Sankhya and theistic Sankhya. So Srila Prabhupada explains this in third canto in the purport. So those Buddhism and Jainism, they have atheistic Sankhya system, because ultimately there is no conception of God there. In both the philosophies, ultimately you become Ishvara or Bhagavan or God. Their definition of God is different. So they are atheistic Sankhya, but Bhagavat believes in theistic Sankhya. So now what's the difference between atheistic and theistic Sankhya? Analysis almost is same. If you read their books, read our books, analysis is same: body, senses, mind, false ego. But in the end, our theistic Sankhya leads to devotion, but atheistic Sankhya leads to Nirvana, what Jainism or Buddhism calls it, Nirvana, their goal. It's nothing to do with God. That's a difference. But of course, there are same components of Sankhya in both the philosophical systems.
Prabhuji, I have one more question from this, from our discussion. Prabhuji, this Sankhya, how did this atheistic Sankhya, from where does it originate? And besides that, whatever Nirvana or whatever that they attain, Buddha and Mahavira, how could they attain it without the grace of the Paramatma or the some supreme being?
That's a different thing. I mean to say, they were all powerful personalities, all of them. Buddha is anyway incarnation of God. Okay. So whether Buddhist or all these people, atheistic people, they attain Nirvana, and what is Nirvana? That's again a big question. Nobody has been able to define Nirvana till yet. What is Nirvana? It's abstract. Nobody exactly knows what's Nirvana, because Nirvana means no thoughts. But then if you don't have a thought, then how do you think what is Nirvana? You understand there's a problem, there's a contradiction. Yeah. So this means if you ask any of the atheistic philosophers what is Nirvana, they'll say nobody can define Nirvana, because when you attain Nirvana, then your thought ceases, so you can never know what's Nirvana. So it's almost same like it's almost same like Mayavad, because when you merge in Nirakar Brahm, then you merge, then you are not separate, so then you can't think separate. So you don't know what's that. So it's all undefined thing. It's a very complex and a big subject. I think it needs a real big discussion.
Prabhuji, from where did this atheistic Sankhya originate from?
Atheistic Sankhya comes because Prabhupada explains in Bhagavatam that actually what's that? Actually 2 times Shukdev Goswami, when Shukdev was born of Vyasadeva, actually Shukdev Goswami, when he left his home, he split into 2. So there were 2 Shukdevs. So one Shukdev went somewhere, one Shukdev was in forest. So one Shukdev started atheistic Sankhya. Another Shukdev Goswami, he actually propagated Bhagavad Sankhya. So yeah, this is all explained in Shastras.
But why, Prabhuji, that did happen that he
Why? Because in Kali Yuga, It is because in Kali Yuga is age of Kalaha, and it's a big thing. I mean to say, people need to fight because it is the age of Kalaha. If nobody fights, then this is Satyug. So then, and especially many souls are born which are deluded, which are bewildered in Kali Yuga. So they want to be bewildered. So if they want to be bewildered, then they has to be bewildered in philosophies. So it's a very big complex discussion. So this was required. This was a big plan of Krishna, which is mentioned in Varaha Puran, which is mentioned in Padma Puran. Srila Prabhupada mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. So it is like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. I don't know if I've asked the right questions, but I had this confusion. So thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for the clarification. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Tiffany Mataji, please go ahead with your question, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Keshavanand Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for such a wonderful class. My question is, as I was listening to Indulekha Mataji read the purport of the verse, and it's all about the 11 function, basically the functions of the mind, the senses, and the false ego. And I was wondering, where does consciousness come in?
Consciousness is along with soul. That's what says we are separate from all these things. Mm-hmm. So who we are soul. Now Jad Bharat didn't mention consciousness here. Of course, he mentioned it slightly when he says matra, because that word means knowledge acquiring senses acquire knowledge when they come in contact with sense objects by the mode of perception. So who is now, how soul perceives, how knowledge acquiring senses perceive sense objects? That is through consciousness of soul. Otherwise, we are a robot. We are a dead robot. So that's slightly mentioned indirectly there. But of course, Jad Bharat doesn't mention consciousness. Because why doesn't mention? Because that's the whole game. He says you are soul, you're not body, you're not 11 senses, and you're not false ego. The whole question is where you are. You are at the level of body or mind, false ego. Now, what do you mean by that? I'm at the level of body, false ego, mind. That means in technical words where your consciousness is. Is your consciousness focused on body? Is your consciousness focused on mind or false ego? Or is your consciousness focused on yourself as soul? So there's no need to mention consciousness. Either you can say where your focus is, what actually Jad Bharat is saying here. So Jad Bharat is saying, I am not all of these. That means his focus is on his very self, soul. That automatically says, my consciousness is fixed on my soul. Or you can say, or you can bring the term consciousness. So in many philosophies, philosophers do not use the word consciousness. They use this word focus. Just like in Bhagavad Gita also, there is no word consciousness used, isn't it? If you look about this, there's no word consciousness. There is one verse where Prabhupada writes that the soul is all pervading. Am I right? In this body. So what's that verse in 2nd chapter? Where Prabhupada says the soul pervades the body through consciousness. But in that Sanskrit verse, there's no literal word consciousness being used. Of course, in 13th chapter, nature, enjoyer, consciousness, that's a whole chapter devoted to consciousness. But there also, if you see, the word consciousness is not used there clearly. I mean, just explicitly. Because consciousness can be included with soul because it's a symptom of soul, just like sun and sunlight. Or consciousness can also be explained in the matter of focus, where I am, where if I'm on the level of body, then I'm enjoyer, so my consciousness is there. If I'm serving Krishna, then I'm enjoyer, and I'm my consciousness of the soul. So you see, even in Gita, if you see properly, the word consciousness is not really introduced explicitly. I'm not saying it's not there. 13th chapter. 13th chapter. So that's the whole point. So consciousness is there. Jad Bharat is mentioning the word consciousness without mentioning it. It is understood. But if you want to say, did he like literally mention? Okay, he mentioned in the word matra, because they cannot, because perception without consciousness is not possible. So either you can say I'm perceived as sense objects, or you can say I'm conscious of sense objects. Isn't it? That's life. So like that we can understand the word consciousness. That's why it doesn't mention.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So basically, the consciousness survives or resides with the soul.
What's that? Consciousness what?
Resides or lives with the soul. It's in the soul.
Yeah. Consciousness is actually the symptom of soul. Let's put it like that. So just like a bulb and a tube light and a light. So you can say bulb. Again, so in America, what do you call it? So you call it as bulb or what? What do you call it as Americans? Light?
A light bulb?
Bulb?
Yes,
yeah,
bulb,
light bulb.
yes.
Okay, you understand bulb. So okay, so you can say it's a light bulb. So light is already included in that, isn't it? Bulb, light, tube light. Right. So we don't talk separately of light. So when we say soul, automatically consciousness is included in that concept. Like,
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your answer. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for the class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji, for the wonderful question. Sureshwar Shyam Prabhuji, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu, for clarifying for me again about Sankhya philosophy. This about verse 5.4, right?
I don't know what's it for.
No, Prabhu, clarified, right? Sankhya Yoga, Prutak Bhala, Prabhavana Pandita, right? And highlighting that the Sankhya philosophy, how it is significant and important. Prabhu, one question I have, this one from 6th chapter, Prabhu, 7th verse of 6th chapter. It is said that for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. Maybe you covered already, Prabhu, little bit based on Nandapriya Mataji's question. So what does it mean, Prabhu? For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. What does that practically mean?
Yeah, if you have conquered the mind, then that means you're not disturbed by your mental ideas. And we understand that we are not this mind. I mean to say, we are not disturbed by this mind, ideas of mind. So when we'll do meditation and we'll chant, then we can just put our mind separately and we can completely focus on holy name. And this complete focus on holy name, super soul is already reached. Krishna is there with you. The only block in chanting between you and holy name or me and holy name is our mind. It doesn't allow us to focus on holy name. So Krishna is speaking from that angle. He's saying if your mind is controlled, the sadhana is complete. That's all. Your main block is gone. So you can achieve me easily. You chant and I'll be there. That's the meaning.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. There's one last hand raise. Can you please go ahead with your question? I don't know, it's Mataji or Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, your classes are always amazing. I have a few questions. One is, when you were explaining the different senses that are controlled by the mind, it seemed that you included the false ego among them. Is that correct?
Yeah, because Srila Prabhupada does that here in this purport, in this verse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
you're right. It's a different way of classification. Generally, we don't say false ego is controlled by mind. Generally, we think false ego is beyond the mind. But in this verse, Jad Bharat is saying even false ego is under the control of mind. So it can be okay. I mean to say it's both things are correct. Although false ego is actually above mind in hierarchy. Their senses, mind, false ego. But the mind is so powerful that presently our mind is even controlling of false ego.
And how is that?
How is that? It's simple. It's simple. How is that? I mean to say, I told you, function of false ego is to generate ideas of which we are convinced, even without logic.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it happens. No, sometimes your friend says, so why do you think like that? You say, yeah, because I think like that. That's all. So he says, do you have any evidence? No, I feel like that. And I'm pretty sure it's like that. Am I right? We encounter many people like that. So we're convinced by some logic or some experience in life, some minimal small experience. We come to a conclusion and then we hold to that conclusion and we keep on going. And then we scan the entire world by that conclusion. So that's false ego. But the mind is so strong now that false ego proposes this conviction. Okay, this is a thought, you should believe this, and this is like this. So, but the mind will make you do some things which is beyond, which is actually opposite to your conclusion. So, for example, suppose we have diabetes and we don't, so and the doctor says you don't have to take sugar. And so false ego, it gets convinced, yeah, actually, you don't have diabetes, it's scientific, I should not take sugar, and that's it, otherwise I'll become unhealthy. So that's false ego, a well-established, rational, evidence-based idea. False ego fixes that. But then the mind comes, it says, well, it doesn't matter if you take little sugar. And so how many diabetic patients, they don't take sugar. Eventually they end up taking here and there, and they go out of control. And
yeah.
So that's the whole point. Mind is more stronger than false ego.
Okay, thank you. Another question was, you kind of blew my mind when you said that in Shastra, it talks about 2 Shukadevs Goswamis.
Yeah.
Where do we find that in Shastra?
It is there. I think in Acharya's commentaries, they mention this. I think Srila Prabhupada also mentions footnotes. I don't know whether Prabhupada mentions or not. But I think it's clear, Vishnu Chakra Thakur, and they mention it. And even if you go to Shankara Sampradaya, they also say that there are 2 Shukadeva Goswami. Because if you go to Shankara Sampradaya begins with Shukadeva Goswami. You can imagine. So then who is that Shukadeva Goswami who is speaking Mayavad? Who is transmitting Mayavad? And in our Sampradaya, we also have Shukadeva Goswami. So then there's a big problem. So Acharya's quote from various Puranas, and even Madhvacharya, he quotes that it is clear that there were 2 Shukadeva Goswamis, and one was propagating Mayavad philosophy, one was propagating Bhagavad philosophy, who is with us. And how did they come about? When Shukadeva Goswami left his home, he divided into 2, and things happened. Began from there.
But is it bona fide to cite Shankaracharya?
Yeah, it's all there. It's all there. And our acharyas have cited. It's all there. There's no problem in this.
Our acharyas are quoting Mayavad philosophy.
No. Our acharyas are saying how Mayavad philosophy begins with Shukdev. What's the logic for that? And then they give this evidence that because there were 2 Shukdev Goswamis and they split. So the Praman for this from Puranas they gave. I think this Praman is from Varha Puran or Brahmand Puran, which says that Shukdev Goswami splits. So they gave all these evidences. So Madhva also, he then comments on this.
Okay, so that's beyond me right now. Okay, let me go to the next. My next thing. My next thing is, you were saying that, I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate, that, we have to understand all these different points of philosophy in order to, acquire knowledge and identify, what is our mind, what is false ego, what is soul, all these things. We cannot, think that just chant and be happy, like some say. But in response to this, I'm thinking about that analogy where it said, even if you don't know or understand fire, it will burn you. So the result will be there, So that's same true. Same with, seriously chanting Hare Krishna. If you are seriously chanting Hare Krishna, paying attention to the sound.
Yeah, you're right. I can understand your devilish part. I can understand what you're saying. Okay, so I'll answer this. I can understand what you're saying. So you see the whole point is, even if you touch the fire, it will burn. So when you chant the holy name, it will help. It will have an effect. But now here the point comes. Now you yourself said, because you're playing devil's advocate, so I'm also advocate. So I'll just counter argue and cut your points. You yourself just said that if you chant seriously, now that's the catch there. How to chant seriously? That's the whole point. You can't chant seriously without training. It can't happen.
Without what?
So you can't chant seriously without a proper training in knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's why. So that's why we have a parampara. So that's why we say Sampradaya Vihina Je Mantra Te Nishphala Mata. Famous verse that without coming in parampara, your chanting is useless. So there's a big verse, isn't it? Sampradaya Vihina. Mantra is useless. So please come in a parampara, take diksha, and then shiksha, and then you have bhajana kriya, then you advance. So if the holy name would have given effect without seriously chanting, and if holy name was sufficient to give you love of God without seriously chanting, or in other words, that means without coming into parampara and without taking diksha, then why does our scriptures emphasize so much on coming in parampara, and a Vaishnava and bona fide parampara? And why does Prabhupada always in his books, he again and again speaks, come join a bona fide parampara and take diksha, take initiation and follow principles, regulatory principles. So if we think, if we take this analogy, you touch the fire and it will burn. Now this analogy is there, but this analogy works only when you touch the fire. If you don't touch the fire, then nothing happens. All right? So if you don't touch the holy name, then nothing happens. And how do you touch the holy name? When you chant seriously. And what is the meaning of seriously? When you come in parampara and take initiation. And so what's the meaning of coming in parampara and initiation? That means taking knowledge from parampara and books of acharyas. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So you see the point?
Yeah.
So that analogy of touching fire is okay, provided we are touching the fire. Otherwise, the analogy doesn't work. So anyway, so even if you don't touch the fire, if you're just sitting near the fire, at least you will get the heat. So similarly, even if you don't come in parampara and if you chant holy name, you will get some sukruti or pious credits. But as far as giving love of God and advancing in devotion, that will not happen. You got the point?
Yeah. Well, when you use the term pious credit, how do you distinguish that from devotion?
This actually this Prabhupada uses the word pious credits. This pious credit is actually bhakti sukruti, pious credits of devotion.
Yeah, but you say we won't get devotion though.
Yeah, we don't get devotion, but we get pious credits. Here pious credit means that that we get some credit because we did something. Suppose if somebody chants just like that, just some ordinary man who chants like that. So what will happen is he will get some impression in his mind that he chanted something, and not only he gets impression, but holy name remembers that he chanted.
Impression here. So, what do you mean impression?
Impression means that that suppose he chants. So I'll give example. Suppose suppose there's a Harinam in the street, and this person, he opens the door, comes and joins the Harinam, chants, but of course he's just chanting like that, and then goes back in the home and the Harinam party passes. So he gets some impression. That means he feels nice while chanting the holy name at that time. So that feeling of nice is impressed on his mind.
Okay.
So next life when he sees Harinam, his feeling in previous life, it gets activated, and then he feels nice. So actually, I feel nice by seeing this Harinam. I don't know why, but I'm feeling nice because in previous life he felt nice. So that's called impression. So that's one thing. Another thing, what is going on is when he's chanting at the Harinam party, Krishna records it in his diary that he chanted my name. Of course, not seriously, but he chanted. So then Krishna gives him a chance to enter devotional life in the next life by providing him some good circumstances. So maybe Krishna will make him get birth near ISKCON temple, for example. He will say, okay, let's do this. Anyway, he chanted my name. So let him take birth near ISKCON temple, so he will get association. Then he might accept devotion. So like that. So that is called pious credit in devotional terms. But that's not devotion because that is Krishna is making some arrangement so that he can enter devotion in the next life.
Yeah, make conducive arrangement for
conducive like that to enter devotion.
Okay. Okay. Just one last thing, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Okay, so actually instead of pious credits, you can also use the term devotional credits like that. So that's not devotion.
Well, that seems more ambiguous because then you're making it sound like actual devotion.
Yeah, you're right. So that's why Prabhupada doesn't use this word devotional credits. Prabhupada uses the word pious credits because then it becomes unclear. Devotional credits, then it's devotional.
Right? Thank you, Prabhu. One last thing is back to the subject about Sankhya. You were saying that theistic Sankhya will definitely lead to devotion.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering about this because, yes, the Sankhya can help you to cultivate renunciation, but we hear that those who are renounced, they might aspire for impersonal liberation. Not that they think that they're God, they recognize somebody or something superior to them, but maybe they don't have yet personal conception of God. So, why wouldn't theistic Sankhya just land a person at the doorstep of, impersonal liberation?
No. Actually, you see the point. There are different types of renunciation also. So when we say theistic Sankhya, the result of theistic Sankhya is devotion, and the symptom of devotion, result of devotion is renunciation. Then we are mentioning here renunciation, which is called as yukta vairagya, devotional renunciation, and not dry renunciation of impersonalism. So here renunciation is used in the spirit of devotion, which is acting on platform of soul, and not just impersonal renunciation. So there are different types of renunciation. So there's some devotional renunciation, there is dry renunciation, there is also monkey renunciation, which people feel if some problem comes.
So this is the distinction I need, the distinction between Sankhya and dry renunciation. Can you?
Yeah. So no, Sankhya is not dry. Atheistic Sankhya leads to dry renunciation. Theistic Sankhya leads to devotional renunciation. That's how it goes. Because atheistic Sankhya, the goal is not God. The goal is impersonal revelation. So atheistic Sankhya people think, okay, fine, I'm not this body, I'm not false ego, I'm not this. So then who I'm soul. So then that's it, because I'm soul, and then what's there beyond me? There is some impersonal abstract thing. So I have to merge in that. So that's atheistic. But theistic Sankhya automatically leads to theistic renunciation, because theistic Sankhya says, you're not this body, you're not this false ego, you're not this blah, 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 nation society. Who are your soul? And then what is soul? Soul is servant of God. So if you are soul, then you have to act on platform of soul. That means you should serve God. So, and you should not serve any other thing. So then our renunciation means in theistic renunciation, it means that we are not trying to work for anybody else except Krishna. That's theistic renunciation. So that's very important distinction. Atheistic renunciation means no work, inertness. But theistic renunciation is work for Krishna and not for anything else. And atheistic renunciation means an atheistic renunciation. Actually, there's some merging in impersonal Brahman. Atheistic renunciation, there is active service for God there. So there's a lot of difference between renunciation. So of course, when we use the word renunciation, automatically the word renunciation in
it sounds
common
dry.
parlance. Yeah, in common parlance, renunciation is connected to impersonal people. So that's why devotees have a hard time to digest this word renunciation, because renunciation means yogis and jnanis. What is this doing in our Krishna consciousness or devotional? So they don't understand that it's a very different spirit that's used, renunciation.
But in Bhagavatam, don't we hear about both types of Sankhya, theistic and atheistic, or no?
No, Bhagavatam is only theistic Sankhya, not atheistic.
But there's a teaching. I've understood that there's also maybe was it by Kapila, the other Kapila, or somebody?
Yeah, Kapila also. Yeah. So Prabhupada says that so we have two Kapila, one theistic and one atheistic. So Prabhupada says that atheistic Kapila, he promoted atheistic Sankhya, but here in Bhagavad we have this theistic Kapila who was promoting theistic Sankhya. Prabhupada says there's nothing to do with atheistic Sankhya.
And of course,
so So
of course, and therefore in Gita also, the Sankhya philosophy is second chapter, right? Theistic Sankhya.
Yeah, Sankhya.
Second theistic Sankhya.
You see, there's a whole problem here. I'll tell you one thing. Now, having said this, the Mayavadis will say that Bhagavatam is giving atheistic Sankhya and Gita is giving atheistic Sankhya. According to us, Bhagavatam and Gita is giving theistic Sankhya. So there's a difference of opinion when we come to the books. So that confusion is also there. You can. So it's,
impersonalists will say that Bhagavatam is giving atheistic Sankhya.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you immensely.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Are there any more questions for
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Pranam Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, if I didn't heard wrong, because I was away for a minute in the class too, you said if somebody...
Somebody what? Your voice is gone.
Sorry, Prabhu. I think I was muted. So if somebody chants all day, but he's not detached, it is not useful. But isn't, holy name has so much glories, we can glorify all our life. So isn't even chanting a form of detachment? We all like that sleep in the morning time, but we wake up and we try to chant, try to...
That's the whole point, that's what Bhakti Siddhanta's whole life was dedicated to. That is the illusion. That's what we have to understand. That's the whole lecture. My whole lecture is for this point. Even if anybody's chanting whole day, even if he's chanting and weeping entire day and rolling on ground, still we can't say he's a devotee, he's a pure devotee. Nobody can say, because even Sahajyas do that. Even people saying in Radha Kund, they are doing. That's why Prabhupada said to his devotees, Prabhupada is ISKCON devotees at Prabhupada's time. So they were associating with Radha Kund Babaji. Prabhupada said that they are not living at Radha Kund. They are all living at Narak Kund. Although those Babajis are doing 24 hours chanting, 24 hours kirtan, they even sleep less. So you see, that's the whole trick of devotion. See, so many devotees, they chant 128 rounds, 192 rounds. That's good. But then after chanting 192 rounds, then they fall down. Then they run away with the female. How is it? You chant 192 rounds, then you run away with the female. How does it happen? So that means he's not chanting 192 rounds. There's something else going on. So the whole point is, or he's chanting 192 rounds, but he's chanting with selfishness. So he's not in contact with holy name. He's not in contact with fire. He's thinking he's chanting. That is why there's a concept of namabhas. That is why there's a concept of nam aparadh in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So one might be doing namabhas and not Shuddh Nam 24 hours. Or nam aparadh without even understanding that he's doing nam aparadh. So then you don't get love of God. Then there's always chances of falling down. You can't tell who is a pure devotee like that. And that's not Bhakti Siddhanta. That's not Prabhupada. That is whole, if you see Christian tradition, Christian mysticism, Quran, if you see Islamic mysticism, all of them say like that. Same opinions. Same, it's not just unique to Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Everybody says that you can sit somewhere in a room or one, and you can 24 hours you can pray, you can sit in one place, but you might not be advancing even an inch if you are not fulfilling the desire of God. That is preaching mission, which actually Krishna wants from us. Or if you are not actually helping devotees worldwide or Vaishnava community, you're not contributing, then it's also from selfishness. Then there are other things also. So, or if your concept is not clear, if you're chanting for your own satisfaction and own ecstasy, then it's useless. So you see the point. That is why we have so much philosophy. Otherwise, it's very simple. Why do you have philosophy? There's so many glories of holy name. You simply chant and you perfect life. That's simple. That is one line. Then why so many books? Why so many things? Why so much philosophy? Why do I actually rack our brains by so much philosophy? Let us keep it simple. But no, it's not simple. There are complications, and if we don't understand, then things go haywire. Just like in the morning, some devotee was saying that, or yesterday, somebody was saying, so Prabhupada says, so we hear in scriptures, so everything happens by the will of God. So even a leaf doesn't move by the will of God. That's true. But then somebody can say, okay, so I killed that person because it was will of God, because everything happens by will of God. Then that logic becomes stupid logic. So then you have to understand the philosophy. Everything happens by the will of God, but then we also have free will. And Krishna sanctions our free will by his free will. So in other words, it is happening by the will of Lord, but actually it is our will. You see the point? Otherwise, we land up into contradictions. So like that. So that is why Prabhupada books are there. We have to, and that is why Prabhupada speaks. Next instruction, he brings up this point: Nama Prad, Nama Bhas, Nam Shuddh Nam, and all these things. Is it clear?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I was just also, there are so many stories like Ajamila, in the end of the life, he said Narayana, just by name, he was, being,
No, Vishwanath Thakur explains, he didn't get released by name. When he called his son Narayana, he didn't pick Shuddhanam. He got Namabhas. And then Yamdutas, then Vishnudut came and they asked him to go to Hardwar. He went to Hardwar in a subtle body, and then he did sadhana with proper knowledge, and then he went to the Vaikuntha. It didn't happen straightforward.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Do you have some more time, Prabhuji? There's one more raise hand.
Yeah.
Usha Mataji, please go ahead with your question, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Today is my first time and in this class. So what I heard, you said that to start this process, we have to take some Diksha and Siksha Guru first, right? Diksha Guru first.
Yeah.
So this is like, so before taking this Siksha Guru, not Diksha, right? Shouldn't we start all these austerities? Like chanting, japas, reading at all these Mangal Aartis, everything.
Of course you can do. You can do
right?
Everything.
Because
That's
this is kind of a warm up. But you said that, what I heard, maybe I'm wrong, that if we are doing chanting, it will not have that much effect until we have a Siksha.
Of course, it will not have that much. If without Diksha, we keep on chanting, if we keep on doing things, we will not attain Krishna Prem. Because that's the system. Adau Diksha, Tatha Shiksha, Atha Bhajana Kriya. Because, you know why? I'll tell you why. Because you see, people think, okay, fine, without Diksha, if I practice everything, then I can get Krishna Prem. What's the problem? If I'm chanting nicely, if I'm reading books and everything I'm doing, I'm prasad and everything, but I'm not taking Diksha, still I'm following the process properly. So if you're following the process, there has to be result. But there's a problem in this. Because following the process with our own mind, that's the problem there. We are following everything, but the whole point is we are following what we want. Okay, I want to follow this, I want to do this, I want to do this. But when you take Diksha, what happens is then the Guru demands something from you. Then he might say, okay, you have to do this, even if you don't like. And you should not chant more, even if you like. No, you have to do service. So what happens by that is we lose our selfishness, we lose our own I-ness, and that's the whole trick there in devotion. Unless we are chanting with I and my, we don't advance properly. So Diksha is the must. Diksha is and with Diksha responsibility comes, with Diksha service comes, with Diksha selflessness comes, with Diksha sacrifice comes, because now now without Diksha we are actually doing something for Krishna. But after Diksha, Krishna will demand from you. Okay, fine, now you should not do this, even if you want. So that demand is required, otherwise we don't advance properly. So to get Krishna Prem, and that is why Prabhupada said, take initiation. Why Prabhupada always in his book says, take initiation. And if we don't take initiation, then whole life, it's very difficult to continue devotion at the same pace. It's very difficult because we are not in the family of Krishna. Because we have not accepted Krishna formally. Okay, Krishna, now I'm ready to do whatever you want. Without Diksha, we can do whatever we want. We can continue. That's okay. But there's no demand, there's no responsibility, there's no sacrifice. So that is why Rupa Goswami, everybody has said Diksha is important. Then we can get Krishna Prem. So we don't advance properly without Diksha. We don't have a guidance also. You see, if there's a Guru, he guides us. We might think something is correct, but Guru will say, no, that's not correct. You think that's correct, but that's not correct. So we have to accept it.
Siksha is the Guru. So first is Siksha Guru, right?
No. First is Adau Diksha Tatha Shiksha. First is Pat Pradarshak Guru. There's a difference between Shiksha Guru and Pat Pradarshak Guru. First is devotees who give you knowledge. We come in association with devotees, they teach us. We learn from them, and that's very nice. So many devotees we learn from so many things, so many people. Or one devotee we might have who's guiding us. That's good, that's very nice. But then that devotee at a certain point, they will say, now become serious. Now take initiation. Initiation is a vow of obedience. After initiation, you have to do what Guru says. Otherwise, you are liable for an offense. So initiation means you are losing your self-independence. And that's the crucial point there. Willfully, you are surrendering your independence. So after that, when you get Guru, then there is so I'm going to say technically it's like that. Practically it happens something else. But then the Guru, then he appoints, then he says, I'm busy, I can't oversee so many disciples. So here is my senior disciple, you please take guidance from him. So that is Shiksha Guru, who's appointed by that master, that spiritual master. Technically it's like that. But practically what happens is, practically through a devotee you're connected with, that acts like Pat Pradarshak Guru. Later he acts like Shiksha Guru also, because you getting connected with him. Then he says, okay, take initiation. After that also he keeps on guiding you. So see, practically it happens separately, and theoretically it happens, it's different. Practically first is Shiksha, then is Diksha. You're right. But technically first is Diksha and then is Shiksha. Like that.
But Prabhu, initiation is recommended, but not necessary if one doesn't want. It is though recommended. It is not forced.
Who says this?
I've heard that. It is recommended if you want. If you don't want, that's fine. It is recommended generally.
No, it's not like that. It's recommended. Why we say recommended? Because we are not forcing initiation. Nobody's forcing. But if we don't take, then we can't get Krishna prema. It's sure, because then we don't, then we are not losing our self-independence. We want to keep our self-independence with us. And what's the harm of initiation? I mean to say, even if it's recommended, then what's the harm in taking a guide who is responsible for our life? Or we want to lead our whole life without any guide who is responsible? Okay, Shiksha Guru is there. Shiksha Guru, I mean to say, here Shiksha Guru is Prataksha Guru. Somebody is guiding you, but he's not responsible for spiritual life. And he can't really tell you do this. And so neither you're responsible to actually whatever he tells to do that. But Diksha means a responsibility and loss of self-independence. So that's recommended, but that's necessary after a certain point of time. But that's recommended. Why we say recommended? Because it's not forced. You have to choose yourself to get initiated. Nobody.
And it comes by the heart. It should come by the heart when you are ready.
Yeah,
by
of
all
course.
means. By all
Of
means.
course.
Being a
Of course you are right.
grandchild, being a family woman, or a man, it should come from all sides, isn't it?
Yeah, of course you're right. It should not be forced. It should come by your own heart. If you are ready, then you take. If you're not ready, no problem, continue. But if you're sincere, then automatically it will come from
it comes
heart.
Yes, but my question was that if we are not taking the initiation and yet we want to continue all these austerities, but it's going in vain.
It's it's going in vain in the sense that so there's a sense to it. It's going in vain in the sense that you don't achieve your goal, Krishna prema. So of course you advance. I mean to say, you advance a little bit. Of course, we get a sense of devotion. We get attachment to Krishna. We understand things. But when we say it's going in vain, scriptures also says that there are shlokas in Sanskrit. Without diksha, it's in vain. And that's what I quoted: Sampradaya vihina te mantra te nishphala mata. It's a very famous words Prabhupada quotes. Without sampradaya, without diksha, your mantra is in vain. Now, why does scripture says like that? Now we have to understand properly why. Because we see devotees who chant without diksha also, they also advance at a particular level. It's not that they don't advance, they get realizations and advance. But when they say it goes in vain, this means that you don't achieve your goal, Krishna. So in that sense, it's in vain. I mean to say, if I follow the process, if I don't achieve my goal, then what's the use of the process? Now, if I say I've followed entire life, life after life, but I never had darshan of Krishna, I never attained Golok. So what will the other party say? What are you doing? It's waste. In that sense, scriptures says it's in vain. But there are also scriptural statements where they say, if you chant holy name, it will benefit you. Anyhow you chant, that's also there. This is also there. So then you have to harmonize. In what spirit they are saying it's in vain, in what spirit it is said it is useful. Like that. So there's harmonization.
Even Prabhupada also took the initiation after so many years of staying with his guru. Like he took, I think, 20 years.
Yeah. So I think he took after 11 years. 1922 he met, and then 1933 he took initiation after 11 years.
11 years after.
Yeah, because Prabhupada wanted to take, but Prabhupada couldn't meet him because of being businessman. He was here.
Day to day life.
Yeah. He was busy.
And so this is like doing all the devotional service before the initiation is just a warming up. It's just like a warming up before going to a vigorous.
Yeah. You can say like that. It's like a warming. It's like a warming up. it's like a warming up, but still you're not in a. But still you're not participating in the tournament, because warming up is done behind the stage. It's not done on the stage. We are still not on the stage. So yeah, it's warming up. It's there behind the stage, but we have to go on the stage and in the tournament to get a gold medal. Then it makes the entire picture. It makes a sense.
But it's still one day we will go in the tournament.
Yeah, one day, of course. If we are sincere, you see, I'll tell you one thing. See, I have traveled all around the world many times, and I have seen many devotees not being initiated for 30 years, for 20 years, for 15 years, not getting initiated, but they are practicing devotion nicely. But somehow some block is there. I know personally some devotees who have not taken initiation. There's some block there. So there are many cases like that. Keep on doing devotion, and they're sincere by all means. I can see that, but they don't take initiation. Then what's up? So in fact, George Harrison, what about him?
Yes.
George Harrison, he didn't take initiation. He was very sincere. Prabhupada always used to praise him. Devotees used to praise him. He used to write letters. Prabhupada, I'm chanting sincere. He didn't take initiation. Prabhupada once told George. So actually, George wanted to become full-time. Prabhupada said, no, you don't become full-time. You chant whatever you want. You don't need initiation. Once he said this. And at the other time, in the later part of his life, Prabhupada, when he was in Vrindavan, George was there. He was listening. Then Prabhupada later told his disciples, there's just one lack in George. He doesn't take initiation. I was now tiring so much. So what do you say about that? There are many cases like that. So I think it's not just following sincerely that you get initiated. There are some other factors working. We don't know what's those factors. I think it's following sincerely, blessings of Vaishnavas, and also previous lives blocks. If there are previous lives, grave offenses, they'll block you from getting into the tournament. And that nobody knows. What are those? What happens? So I think it requires proper sincere following of process, and also then we have to pray to Krishna to please guide us so that we get initiated. I mean to say there should be a desire for initiation. And then things proceed. Otherwise, who knows? I mean to say, so who knows your life, my life, or anybody XYZ life? Maybe previous life offenses are so grave that they will not allow us to enter this parampara. That happens. I've seen many devotees. Grave offenses, they can't enter parampara. They try, but they can't. They try, they can't. They're blocked by destiny. So that's another factor. Sincere practice plus the desire to get initiated. And then we go into that level. If Krishna wills.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I hope, Prabhuji, it's already 9:17 for us.
Yeah, I think. Okay, Jai.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhuji, for such an enlightening news today. We are very grateful to you, and we look forward for your association again in the future. Devotees, let's pay your obeisances to Prabhuji. Vancha kalpata.
Kripa sindhudevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
By the way, Prabhuji, the question answer session was like watching a tournament for us.
Oh, Lalitangi Mataji, yeah, I was thinking, where are you?
No, I was watching the tournament. I was watching the tournament of your question answer session.
Yeah, actually, I like question answer session much more. I think once we can have just question answer session, that's very nice.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your very valuable assistance.
Thank you for your association, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful class. Hare Bol.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Keshavanand Prabhuji ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.